They say you never truly know the person sleeping next to you. I used to think that was just a cynical quote for broken people. Now, I know it's the absolute truth. My name is David, and for 7 years, I thought I had won the lottery of life. My wife Sarah and I met in college. We survived the broke student phase, built our careers, and finally bought our dream house in the suburbs. I am a structural engineer, and she is a senior director at a high-end marketing firm. We didn't have kids yet. We wanted to be completely financially secure first. To the outside world, and honestly, to me, we were the perfect couple. We still went on date nights, we still laughed at inside jokes, and our intimacy was great. Or so I thought. Looking back, the scariest part wasn't the betrayal itself. The scariest part was how perfectly she could look me in the eyes, smile, kiss me, and tell me she loved me while living a completely double life.
The changes didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like in the movies where you find an unfamiliar piece of clothing or smell cheap perfume. It was a slow, agonizing drip of small inconsistencies. It started with her phone. Sarah always had her phone around, but suddenly it was glued to her hand. If she took a shower, the phone went into the bathroom. If we were watching TV, it was face down on the couch. When I casually asked her to look up a recipe on her phone because my hands were covered in flour, she hesitated, unlocked it herself, and held it up for me instead of just handing it over. Then came the work emergencies. As a director, she always worked hard, but suddenly there were weekend retreats, late-night strategy meetings, and networking dinners that she just had to attend. She started dressing differently too, buying expensive lingerie she never wore for me, going to the gym at 6 a.m. Whenever I brought up that we were spending less time together, she would gaslight me perfectly. She'd sigh, look stressed, and say, "David, I'm doing this for us. If I get this VP promotion, we can pay off the mortgage in 5 years. Don't you support me?" And like a loving idiot, I apologized and made her dinner.
My gut was screaming at me, and as an engineer, I deal with facts, structures, and evidence. So I decided to stop guessing and start calculating. Our cell phone plan was under my name. I logged into the provider's portal and pulled the detailed billing records for the last 3 months. There it was, a single unsaved number, hundreds of texts, phone calls lasting exactly 30 to 40 minutes during her commute to and from work. And the worst part? Texts at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., times when she was lying in bed right next to me, claiming she couldn't sleep. I ran the number through a background check service online. The name came back, Marcus Vance. Marcus was the vice president of her firm. He was married, had 2 daughters, and had been to our house for a barbecue just a month prior. He had drunk my beer, shaken my hand, and complimented my lawn. But a phone bill isn't enough for a divorce that protects my assets. I needed undeniable proof. While she was at one of her networking dinners, I bought a voice-activated recorder, no bigger than a flash drive. I used double-sided tape and secured it deep under the passenger seat of her SUV. I felt sick doing it, like I was invading her privacy. But I needed the truth.
Three days later, she came home, kissed my cheek, and went to take a shower. I went to the garage, retrieved the recorder, plugged it into my laptop, and put on my headphones. Nothing prepares you for hearing it. Nothing. It was a recording from her commute home that evening. She was on Bluetooth. I heard Marcus's voice. They weren't just talking about work. They were talking about a hotel room they had just left. The graphic details they discussed made my stomach violently churn. I actually had to run to the bathroom and throw up. But then came the part that killed the man I used to be. Marcus asked her about me. He said, "Doesn't your husband suspect anything?" And Sarah, my beautiful, sweet Sarah, the woman I promised my life to, she laughed. A cold, mocking laugh. She said, "David? God, no. He's too boring and predictable to even imagine something like this. He's completely clueless. He just makes my coffee, kisses my forehead, and goes to his little blueprints. He's safe. You're an adventure." I sat on the floor of my office in the dark for 3 hours. The David she thought was boring died on that floor. What stood up was a man with nothing left to lose.
The most dangerous thing you can give a betrayed man is time. And I took 2 full months. The hardest acting job of my life was the next morning, making her coffee, kissing her forehead, being the clueless, safe husband. But behind the scenes, I went to war. First, I found the most aggressive divorce attorney in the city. I played her the tapes. I showed her the phone records. Since we lived in an at-fault state, infidelity mattered heavily regarding alimony and asset division. My lawyer, let's call her Brenda, smiled a terrifying smile and gave me a checklist. Over the next 8 weeks, I gathered every financial document. I discovered Sarah had been using a joint savings account to fund her hotel rooms and expensive dinners with Marcus, masking them as client expenses. That is financial infidelity. I slowly moved half of our liquid assets into a private account my lawyer set up. I arranged for a real estate agent to secretly appraise the house. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator to follow them. I got high-definition photos of them entering and leaving the Marriott. I got photos of them kissing in the parking lot. I didn't just have a case. I had a nuclear bomb. I just needed the right place to drop it.
The perfect opportunity arrived when Sarah's company hosted their annual gala. It was a massive event, hundreds of people, open bar, catered food. Sarah was up for the VP promotion, directly under Marcus. Marcus's wife, Claire, was also attending. Sarah asked me to come to play the supportive husband. I smiled and said I wouldn't miss it for the world. I arrived early. I found the AV guy running the projector for the presentations. I handed him a crisp $100 bill and a USB drive, telling him it was a surprise anniversary video Sarah's colleagues put together, and asked him to play it right after her speech. The night was in full swing. Sarah got on stage, gave a glowing speech about synergy, dedication, and trust. Marcus was sitting at the VIP table next to his wife, clapping proudly. Sarah finished her speech, and the room applauded. Then, the AV guy dimmed the lights and played my USB. The massive screen behind her didn't show a corporate logo. It showed a high-res photo of Sarah and Marcus passionately making out in his Mercedes. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. The next slide clicked automatically. It was a screenshot of their text messages, blown up 10 feet tall. messages detailing their hotel room encounters and the company money she used to pay for them. Sarah turned around, saw the screen, and dropped her microphone. The feedback screeched through the speakers. Marcus jumped out of his chair, completely pale. His wife, Claire, looked at the screen, looked at him, and slapped him so hard it echoed across the ballroom. I calmly walked up to the edge of the stage. I didn't yell, I didn't scream. I just handed Sarah a large manila envelope. "What's this?" she stammered, tears streaming down her face, her mascara running. "Divorce papers," I said loud enough for the front row to hear. "I want you out of the house by tomorrow. Have fun with your adventure." I turned around, walked out of the venue, got in my car, and drove away.
It's been 2 years since that night. The fallout was biblical. Because her affair involved a superior and misuse of company funds for their hotel rooms, both Sarah and Marcus were fired the very next morning for violating corporate ethics. Marcus's wife Claire reached out to me. We shared evidence. Her divorce lawyers destroyed him. He lost custody of his kids and is currently paying massive alimony, working a mid-level job he hates. As for Sarah, because of the undeniable proof and the financial infidelity of using our joint account, my lawyer wiped the floor with her. I kept the house, my pension, and my investments. She had to move into a tiny apartment, blacklisted from most top marketing firms in the city because the corporate world talks, and nobody trusts a director who steals and sleeps with the boss. She tried calling me a few months later, crying, saying she made the biggest mistake of her life, saying that I was the only real man she ever knew. I listened to her cry for about a minute, then I calmly said, "I'm sorry, I'm too boring for this conversation," and blocked her number forever. If there's a lesson here, it's this: never mistake a quiet man for a weak one. Sometimes the most boring guy in the room is just the one observing everything, waiting for the right moment to strike. Thanks for listening.